Vivian, maybe I'll start with you. You spend a lot of time on social media, but you have a very fresh and authentic take on life and entrepreneurship. I mean, this is why we all love you.
Yeah. Well, I think watching all these perfect kitchens and perfect kids and perfect everything. Right? So it's not realistic. It's not sustainable for the average woman, you know? And so for me, I'm just like, listen, you're gonna get what I got. So you're gonna get my ups and downs and everything's in betweens, the messy, the clean. I remember I just, recently I did a house tour.
I've got a white stove. I've got a white microwave.
Me in my normal house, and I showed my, my white appliances.
And all that matters is that they work.
Like all these normal things and dirty mirrors, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, thank God, because I was beginning to think there was something wrong with me.
This Pinterest world.
Because I don't have a Pinterest house. And it's like, I don't have a Pinterest house. And
Are those do people, maybe I'm just not friends with any of these people, but is it possible that some of them really live like that? Because I do follow people online.
I think they do. I really think they do. And it's sad because they're not living for themselves. They're living for these invisible strangers on the internet.
Living for clicks and
likes. They're living for clicks and likes and followers. And it's like, screw them. Like screw the clicks and the this and the that. Listen, if you're going to watch me or if my content resonates with you, good. But I'm not performing for you. I'm performing for me.
I use social media. I use social media as my social life.
Yes.
And thank God for Twitter, because here we are.
We right?
Met.
And I was nosy in your conversation. I was like, me too.
So for people who don't know, this started because one day, Amber, out of the blue, says to me on Twitter in front of everybody, oh my God, you need to meet my friend Lisa.
Yes.
And so we were connected. And we started to follow each other and comment on each other and get to know each other superficially, of course, because it's social media. And then similarly, I met you online and then in person at a conference where women have met online. And we have stayed in touch, mutual respect, all different people, but it's social media that brought us together. So we use social media. It works for us.
And I was just going to say, and I think all of us, given what we do for our various livings, social media is part of our conduit to connect to other people who share our values or who might, I run a comms and lobby shop. I get clients off of Twitter because number one, apparently they like how much I curse. And who knew? And number two, they like my progressive values. So I also keep it very real. And it's like this, what you see is what you get. And I recently did a panel, right? I recently did a panel on diversity and inclusion. And usually those panels are one person of color with a bunch of white people, right?
Because they know so much about diversity.
Right? And this one was a bunch of people of color, and then the white lady. Because they were talking to me about how hard is it to hire, because I'm a very values-based, progressive person, and I work in the anti-racism space in my personal life. And so we had this conversation, and I just remember, someone saying to me, they asked the question, so, and I can't say the actual phrase here, but I'll kind of give you the generic summary. They asked me, why now at my age am I so willing to be so open and honest?
But I think all of those things are so important to kind of break down these conversations about, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to achieve? Like, how do we be authentic and real in social media? And to me, the one thing that I've always struggled with, and I think Erica probably knows this better than anyone, is that I love social media just as much as everybody else. The thing that I don't like sometimes when women get together on social media, and this is just because of my pure interests, is that sometimes I find we don't have really meaty conversations like we're having here. Sometimes I find the conversations tend to be, a little bit surface level, right? And to me, I feel it's important to be able to dive into conversations about, women's issues and healthcare and politics and the impact of technology. But I don't see as many women having those conversations.
Because we're open to attack.
Oh yeah, that's
That
true.
is so true.
I do
and
get
more
attacked a
so-
lot.
I dare someone to come and attack me. See what happens.
Well, actually, it's interesting that you bring that up because now I find, in the past, when someone would attack me, I would respond in a very sort of calm way, in a rational way, and leave it at that. And then if they wanted to come after me, they could, but I just didn't respond again. I don't even do that anymore. In fact, I'm going to talk about Twitter because that was my most happy place where I've met the most people. That has been the most life-changing for me. And I find that is now an anger machine, and that I think that the current owner, whose name I won't even mention because I have such
Just say
disrespect.
Elmo.
I have such disrespect for him that he is creating an algorithm that is based on anger. So he tries to get people angry so that they start fighting publicly and more people join. I won't play that game. I will not do it. So sadly for me, I don't post as much on Twitter or even on social media as I used to.
LinkedIn, you're pretty
And
hot on LinkedIn, Erica.
But I was going to say, LinkedIn is a place where they can have, or you can have sane, elevated, business-related conversations where people understand that what they say reflects them, because everyone is there to try and get a job. And so if you act
Right,
like
or
an
clients, or
clients,
you behave like a grown-up.
right, you won't get hired. I think a lot of people on Twitter don't have jobs.
No, you know what it is? I think on LinkedIn, there's actual consequences to their actions. Whereas on TikTok, on Twitter,
There's reward.
it's reward.
You get
and
rewarded.
Also, you could be bot number 39344, and
Yeah.
that's you're hiding behind that.
And it's interesting too. And I think that the current owner, Elmo, what's happening, I've noticed. I have a good sized following, not like yours, which is amazing, or yours. But it's like ever since he took it over, fewer and fewer people are engaging with my tweets, and I think it's because I do tweet about very progressive things. Like my practice is primarily an Indigenous practice, so I talk a lot about First Nations and Métis communities. I talk a lot about anti-racism and the work that I do
No
in this
one wants
space.
to hear about that.
No one wants to hear about that. But what I'm noticing, and as an example, last year in January, I had put a call out saying, if you know of any small organizations that are doing really good mental health work, let me know, and I'm going to make a donation to them. Holy crap, I was out like $10,000 by the end of the day. This year, I did the same thing, one person, because nobody's seeing my tweets.
Even my feet, like I didn't know about the earthquake in Turkey until I went to TikTok. I didn't all these things, all these UFOs or whatever being shot down. I didn't know about it until I went to TikTok. Plane crashes, and the feed is no longer. What is it doing?
It's not. Well, I think a lot of people have been right to say that it's no longer a source of breaking news, and that's why so many of us were on Twitter from day one.
Absolutely.
Secondly, just as we're recording this, it just has come out that over Super Bowl weekend, that the owner of Twitter, he basically tweaked the algorithm because his tweets weren't getting enough attention.
Oh yeah, he threw a temper tantrum.
He threw a temper tantrum, and President Joe Biden's tweet had gotten more attention than his tweet. So he actually sent out, or I believe it was his cousin, who sent out a Slack message in the middle of the night to say we have to tweak the algorithm so that my tweets will get
Is this real?
He's a child. He's a child.
Yeah, so he's tweaking the algorithm. So he has sort of basically kind of a white glove, service that allows his tweets to be seen and penetrate everyone on social media, even if you have muted or blocked him, that they are kind of pushing through. So he's not operating at the same level that Twitter used to operate, which has an effect. But just to follow up to Erica's point, here's the thing that I worry about. There's a really amazing woman who runs an organization called the Toxic Hush Campaign in Canada. And one of the things she says is that in social media, what's happening is that women are being silenced and driven away from dialogue and conversation. So my fear is as much as I want to leave, as much
I agree with you. I know what you're going to say.
This is a problem.
It's important that we weather the storm and use our voice and ignore the disgusting anger that we can perhaps attract.
Or there'll be none of us.
Yeah, and we have to stick together too, right? Like none of this women fighting each other.
Oh, God, no.
Like we have to get over that crap.
Whenever I tweet something, this one, I'm pointing at Amber, she's there. She's like, you go, girl, I agree. Honestly, and I feel like it's mutual because we've known each other for so long, and it's not just on Twitter, it's on any platform where she sees something that she knows that can use a bit of support, a little bit of Amber juice. She's in there. She is the epitome of women supporting women. Absolutely. And I feel like all of us have that kind of potential, not only in this broadcast, but also to spread the word. Like, this is important, let's do it. It's sort of like a quiet grassroots rebellion.
Yeah, because what happens when, and this is one of the things that I think I talked to you about, Lisa, a little bit through DMs, is that what happens when all of the voices on Twitter and all the voices in podcasting are Joe Rogan, let's think of the list that goes on, Jordan Peterson, because that's where I believe that's where we're heading.
Absolutely.
Right?
Abso-freaking-lutely.
You know that Mary Simon from the Canadian government, she's just muted all of her social media because of the misogyny and the
Here's what we have to keep in mind. A lot of time, all this misogyny, all these terrible messages, they're all bots.
Of course they are.
They're bots.
Yes.
So if we really want to, I think one of the ways we can defeat this,
Or they're from Rebel News.
Aren't those the same thing?
Now, I wanted to say something. I wouldn't even have mentioned their name because people may go, what is Rebel News?
You're nicer than me.
So for me, no, it's not nicer. In fact, that is my tactic where I don't want to mention people. I don't want to give them ever a platform.
I struggle with that approach slightly.
Okay.
Because what ends up happening is they fill the void that we then create. And my thing is like, okay, you can go and take the upper hand and say, I'm not going to engage, I'm not going to give you any attention. But what happens when all of the spaces are filled with them and we let them aimlessly recruit people who are vulnerable to their terrible narrative without sort of someone else kind of checking in and saying that's not appropriate? Like I do sometimes argue with Jordan Peterson on Twitter. And the reason I do that is, yeah, exactly. That's a Vivian.
How do you argue with narcissistic madmen?
Facts. They hate facts. They do not live in a factual universe. They live in a hateful universe that is devoid of facts. And I'm not saying I'm going to win everybody over, but if there's some 18-year-old boy who follows me because they love tech and gadgets, and they're like, oh, actually, Amber's right. This guy's full of crap. That's all we need.
He is one.
Right? We just need one. And he can tell his friends. And so I don't know the perfect answer, I guess, Erica. I worry about this silencing that potentially goes on in social media because we want to take, the high road. Yeah. We need you back with a vengeance.
Right. Michelle Obama said to go high, and when they go low, we go high. We are just punching them in the throat.
Well, sometimes you just got to punch people in the throat, right? Like,
I don't want to do that. Like, I hear you, but I feel like that's almost man speak. You know what I mean? Like punch them in the throat.
Sometimes you got to return the energy.
Well, did you say manergy?
No. Did I say that? I might have.
That's a new word. I thought you said manergy.
You got to return the manergy because that's the only way they're going to really understand.
But in the art of war, you use people's weight against them. So you don't confront them. You go around them. You do something that what Amber just said, for example, is present facts. Unemotional, this is the facts, and then step away because they can't fight against the facts, or if they do, they sound foolish.
And it's interesting. There's a friend of mine who happens to be a conservative MP, even though I'm a liberal. We do all.
You don't have to make excuses for occasionally talking to someone who is
You
conservative.
have no idea how much crap I get on social media. So I mean, my business is nonpartisan. But because I represent Indigenous communities, we typically get more progressive followers because of that. But what happened a lot, so she once told me the best piece of advice about Twitter. She's like, Twitter is an output machine, not an input machine. So you say your piece and you put your phone down. And that actually really kind of helped me deal with the hate. So my daughter, she actually went off of Twitter for a while, and my son did too. My son is not on social media. He's a 27-year-old student at U of T, and he does not use social media because he thinks it's stupid. But my daughter came off because she couldn't read what people were saying about me. Because in politics, right, conservatives will come at you. You say something good about the prime minister, and all of a sudden, every nasty word that you can possibly think of is coming your way, and it's coming your way for days. I used to get hate tweets about a former partner where I was being held accountable for his actions. And she actually stopped being on Twitter because it just hurt her too much to read what people were saying about her mom. And it's like, that's so sad.
It's sad.
But it's a tactic. It's exactly the tactic that Amber was talking about, which is to silence you. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do.
And I think that's the fear. I don't know, maybe I've just spent too much time alone over the past few years. But
haven't we all? No, I've collected dogs. Like, come on now.
I got plants. Yep.
Your plants are beautiful. Your house might be messy, but your plants are beautiful. But I think that I so easily see this connection between these spaces online sort of mirroring what's happening in the real world. Like I see it in politics, where all of a sudden we just don't have as many voices. I see on social media how this has a ripple effect into other spaces. So to me, it feels like we are in a kind of dangerous time. I mean, Erica, we were talking a little bit when you got to the studio. It feels shaky these days.
It does. I mean, you told me about a bakery that's locking its front door during the day.
Yeah, during hours, because there's just too many people coming in and like breaking windows, or there's the elevated level of sort of mischief and crime, and I feel like we've just gotten to a different point where the ground feels shaky a little.
I feel like we are sorely lacking in leadership. The people who are in power around us and around the world are sorely lacking in values. And so, they always say that, in corporations, it starts from the top and it trickles down. Yep, and so we have no one bright leading the way. It's true. And people are looking for leaders, and it's hard to find them. Leaders who have not progressive ideas. It's not about progressive and conservative and liberal. It's about good old-fashioned values that are, now I'm not religious, but the Bible says, like, do not steal, do unto others. Those kinds of basic values are disappearing. Why? I'm not sure. Is it because our school systems are collapsing? Yes. Greed. Greed is taking over everything. But before, greed was sort of quiet. It was quiet, but it also was not sort of in first place. Yeah. And now people are allowing greed to happen.
You know why? Because the United States voted for, or somehow got into power, got that idiot into power. I'm not going to give that person a name, but that person had no business being the president of the United States. Of course not. Right? And so when the world saw that happen, then that trickle-down effect. And then all of a sudden, all these other countries were electing people that were just, not even just North, all around the world. There's other countries electing, like it seemed like they were just electing the loudest ignoramuses they could possibly find.
But that's education.
With money.
It's because people are not equipped for critical thinking.
No, they just want to be entertained.
They're not able to understand when someone is saying something that has weight and value. They're not being promised the right things. The right things are not buck a beer. If you're going to vote for a prime minister or a premier who is offering you cheap beer, and if you vote for him, it's because you're not educated, and it's not everybody's fault that they're getting a lack of understanding of how politics work, a lack of understanding of how your decision or your joke vote for the buck a beer guy actually has a huge ramification for the kinds of taxes that you're going to pay, the fact that the green belt like our beautiful land is going to be built upon, because you didn't really take voting that seriously, because you don't understand the ramifications. My daughter didn't learn any of this in her school.
Well, do you think also, I mean, I think one of the things you talked about is so important, which is the leadership question and issue that we face right now, because I think some people don't realize that oftentimes some of these leaders who are really bad leaders are taking advantage of people, and those people don't even realize it, right?
That's what they're doing.
That's a piece that concerns me the most, is not understanding that, like, you're a pawn in this person's game.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, like during the pandemic, I think for a lot of us, politics became really real. I mean, it's my business, and I am also a student of American politics too, so I totally understand what you're saying over there. It's like we now can buy leadership. Yeah. And so now all of a sudden people are at home, they're on their devices. We have TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, which is getting more action these days because that's where the adults are going to talk. And so people now have so much access to information, but there's this wonderful book that was written, probably now about 15 years ago, called Data Smog. And it's about all the competing pieces of information that we hear every day. And it's not that people are ignorant or they're not intelligent enough to understand. They don't have time to delve into the issues the same way we do, because it's part of what we do for a living. It's part of our personas and who we are. So, I have one kid who somehow I turned into a New Democrat, and I have another kid who just says, screw it, nothing's ever gonna change.
That's a problem.
That's a problem. But they've been raised in a very political home, right? Like these aren't millennial adults who have never been exposed to these issues. My kids were meeting prime ministers when they were 5 and 6 years old. So it's different now, and there's just so much out there competing for our attention. And I think part of that is why premiers and other world leaders, we were just talking about, one of the leaders that affects us all, Doug Ford, the Green Belt and all those issues. And it's hard for people to have time to understand the minutia of the details, to understand fully why this is so wrong.
Maybe I could just kind of ask each of you, like, it feels hopeless sometimes to be in this world where we're losing some of these things that are sort of the framework of how society successfully operates. And what's maybe not the answer, but like, what do we do? Vivian, maybe I'll start with you.
That was a big question.
It's a big question.
I really don't know. Erica?
All right, well, I think we have to start small. It's not like there's going to be a big solve. But I think doing things like this, sort of rebellious conversations, grassroots, speaking your mind without anyone yelling at us. But I think it's really important to find your safe space, have these conversations, and speak your mind. And start, because I'm trying to write a book. It's really hard to brainstorm by yourself. So to find your people and to start having these conversations. And there was several comments tonight or today that really opened my mind and reminded me, for example, the two of you, well, all three of you actually, owning your space online and not being bullied out. That was really important. That was an important note for me. That will change my behavior, which may have a trickle-down effect to maybe something that I say may change one person's mind, and so it goes. So
you can't underestimate the power of one person impacting one person.
I agree with that.
So I think my answer is it's those big little steps, right?
Yes.
So don't think, oh, well, whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter because no one's going to see it. Someone's always watching. Right. I know that there's some things that have happened to me. I'm like, someone saw that? But someone's always watching.
You're right.
So you can't underestimate, you can't, silence yourself because you think no one's going to hear you. Someone's listening.
So I think that it's going to be great that Lisa has the final say on this, because she straddles the world of feminism and politics and social media. I'm curious to hear what what you would say?
I mean, honestly, I'm not going to lie and say that I don't get upset sometimes over some of the things that I see said about me on social media.
Of course you should be
Right?
upset. You're human. People are extraordinarily callous and rude.
And they would never say it
speaking
in
to
my.
you
They
directly.
would never say it to my face,
Of course
right?
not.
Exactly.
They would
never
I
say
dare
it
you
to
to
your
walk up
face.
to me and tell me the exact same thing to my face. You'd be peeing
You'd be
your pants,
shaking in your boots.
right? Like especially when you find out how tall I am.
audacity.
The audacity. But so for me, a lot of it is when I hit 50. So I made major changes in my life that year, and it just so happened to be right before COVID. So I moved to a new city, I opened my business, and I stopped caring what people thought of me. I just had nothing more left in the tank to worry about what other people think about me. And I think that is one of the freeing things of aging, is I don't care anymore. And I'm going to speak my mind, whether you want me to or not. And it's one of the benefits of being a CEO and building the kind of firm that I want and using social media in the way that I want and being able to work with others to build other communities where we're able to do good work. Last night, Erica, you and I were both thanked by Suleiman over the no-fly list kids, and you and I apparently had both helped them out, and he gave us huge credit for doing so. And I was like, no man, you guys did all the heavy lifting, but it's just so nice to know that there are so many positive communities out there. And I think that's what we need to be working on, is finding those spaces and encouraging those spaces. And then maybe that's how we work to start driving out the hate. Although I got to say, I think the next federal election is going to be really nasty.
It's going to be very
That'll be a
interesting.
future
That'll
episode.
be the next
That'll be the next episode. Okay.
But I think it's really important for women who are listening to this to know that they're not alone. That we are all feeling the same type of isolation and mistrust and hopelessness, etc. And self-doubt. And also there is this larger piece inside me, which is the hopefulness, just being able to have this kind of conversation. So let's keep it going.
Yes.
I completely agree. I think we have to keep it going, and I think we also have to encourage women that we have a voice and that we are stronger together, that we can make changes by coming together and supporting each other. And that is possible. There is a world that wants to drive us apart and send us into, our kitchens never to speak to each other again. It would be easier for all of them. Let's not let that happen.
They don't want me in the kitchen.
Nobody wants me in the kitchen.
I've got white appliances. Let's go.
I am really great at ordering takeout.
I would be in that boat as well. But let's to steal a word that Vivian talks about all the time on social media, let's have the audacity to do that and make the changes that we want to see.
I'm in.
I'm in.
Let's do it.
Let's go. We should do like a whole.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do like a whole
In.
farm thing. And